I did the same thing.
We all just followed the lead. No, we put it says print name and someone put the date, and so we all just dated it.
No. Way back when somebody taught me to read, but
Yeah.
apparently I decided not to.
It wasn't WLA that time.
That's true. No. We can blame this on the Iowa Public School System.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right, so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 5:30. Cassie, if you will do roll call.
Yeah. Mike Bullitt,
Here.
William Beck,
Here.
Colleen Lautenbach, here. Allison Pint, Shelby Poole,
Here.
Greg Sam, Carly Sherrill,
Here.
Jolene Squirtle, Joe Valentine.
All right, so we do still have quorum, so we'll go ahead. William offered to read the mission and vision.
The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs and strategies grounded in solid research combined with the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis of a rigorous overall educational program that builds strong skills in math, reading, literature, writing, music, science, and technology. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students and graduates become exceptional leaders and are prepared to take on the academic and leadership challenges they will face in high school and beyond.
Thank you. Welcome, Allison.
Hi.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the December board meeting agenda.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Is this one of the, with the consent agenda, we don't have, it's been a minute. I'm gonna take a page from Mike's book here.
No, that's okay. If you guys don't want to remove anything from the consent agenda to discuss, then
Gotcha.
just keep going. But if you wanted to, this is where you would amend it.
Okay, so the consent agenda has the December meeting minutes, the December working session minutes, and approving our personnel update. So is there any further discussion around any of that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any conflicts of interest to declare this evening? All right. Public comments? Thank you. There used to be a little thing that I read with it. Is there still a little thing? No? I'll just paraphrase, and I'm going to apologize in advance for probably murdering your name. But just a reminder at public comment that since there is only one person, we probably won't have to worry about time. But just a reminder that we don't discuss personnel issues. Please don't name any specific names of students, teachers, staff, etc. In your concerns. So Ashley Fantastic. Welcome. We'll turn the floor over to you.
I have no concern. I'm just here as a parent first to offer support to the school. I know that there's a lot of positive talk, but there's a lot of negative talk lately. I've been with the community, the WLA community, for over 8 years now, and I am so proud of our community. Now that I have a WLA graduate in public school, I'm even more proud of our school. And I'm here as a parent to offer my support to the school to help and bridge the gap between parents and our board and parents and our staff. And I'm here secondly as a PTO person to say I'm here to support our school and do whatever I can to help our staff feel supported and just help in general.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate you and your commitment. So I will let Jonas reach out to you with any specific things that have come up. And I know our PTO is super active, so we appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
All right. No further public comment, so we will move on to the board report. I do not have much other than that I did receive the mid-year mid-year discussion on Jonas's performance thus far that you guys did at the last meeting. However, I would like to ask if any of you or all of you would like to schedule a meeting to sit down and go over that with him. I wasn't there, so I didn't want to be the one that said, like, here's all the things that were discussed and not have any, knowledge of what was actually discussed other than what's on paper. So I will send out a just general email, and you can respond if you would be interested in joining that meeting, and then we'll get that scheduled just to go over that with Jonas so that he gets that feedback as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will turn it over to you for the superintendent report.
All right. We'll just highlight a few items on the report here. First of all, our current enrollment right now, actually since this was done earlier in the week, it's been updated today, and I believe it was 85 on the board this morning, with about 71 on our waiting list. In terms of new applications, the initial open enrollment application period for the lottery that would take place on February 1st closes next Friday. As of today, we have 366 new applicants for next year. At the same time last year, or on February 1st last year, we had 213. The year before it was 231. The year before it was 159. So our demand for enrollment is certainly continuing to increase. Also probably some signs that, you know, the efforts to do some additional branding and getting our name out there a little bit more is paying some dividends in terms of, you know, responses from people in terms of applications. So
Have we tracked any data on that mailing? I mean, it seems like you got a spike in activity based on the marketing, but have people said it was the mailer they got, or?
You know, I think that is a good point and one I've thought about and don't know that we necessarily have clear answers to. Because we did a number of things. We did the mailing, but we also really increased our social media presence, and we did the billboards.
And it's always hard to figure out what compels somebody to act, or if it's a
Yeah.
combo platter. So I get it, it was just a curiosity.
Yeah, I do think it's a combination, and there certainly is some evidence based on when new updates on social media go that we seem to get some applications. So I don't think it's, but also when the mailings hit that 3, 4, 5 days afterwards, we get a spike. So I think it's a little bit of everything, and
But it makes me wonder on direct mail if it's a chance to zig when everybody zags, because there's so much stuff is electronic.
Yeah.
Now you do pay attention to the things you get in the mail a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yep, it's just hard to know, and how much is, you know, if our families are feeling pretty good, then they tend to spread the word and more families know, and is it a sign that some things are going pretty well? Maybe. Hard to isolate the variables, but
Yeah, no doubt.
the overall thing put together is clearly a positive and leaves us feeling like we're in good shape enrollment-wise for what we want to accomplish.
I had some students that were featured and they were very excited and brought it to class. Very excited about the mailer, so.
You don't happen to have conversion rates for social media available, or if not, are you able to get that information?
What does conversion rates mean? I guess I don't.
Like clicks going to the website, because
Yeah.
versus how much we're spending on.
The person we've been working with on marketing, Liz, sent me some of that. I didn't necessarily understand what I was reading, but I can forward it to you, and
That'd be awesome.
and you probably will, so.
Cool.
Yeah, we do have access to some of those pieces, so that is something I'm happy to do. In terms of instructional leadership, you know, we are into well over half of our second trimester teacher observation are completed in the Bullseye system. Our principals are doing a great job staying on top of that and keeping teaching and learning and student learning front and center and in conversations with teachers, and so we're really happy with our progress there. We have completed our winter diagnostic for iReady. And Cassidy, can you pull up that little one chart that, I think I kind of have to stand up to show you here, but this is some pretty darn positive data. So this is a quadrant chart, and a dot in this quadrant is a student who, you know, less than pace for being proficient, but growth has been really high this year. This quadrant is low growth, low performance, high performance but not super high growth, and this is both high performance and high growth. And so each of these dots represents one of our grades. And so all of our grades are, you know, well above, this is the 50th percentile for performance, this is the 60th, 70th, 80th per grades. All of them, like the lowest is in the 60th percentile, and all but one of the grades is well above expected growth for the grade as a whole. So this is just taking grades that are below. Now, one grade that's a little bit below expected growth is also significantly strong on their overall performance. So if there's a grade you want, maybe not growing quite as fast as one that's already way ahead. So that is just really, I've seen this data a lot. You see some schools that have a lot way over here, but maybe the growth is down here. You know, their kids are already doing really well, but doesn't mean they're continuing to grow. You see some others that see a good growth, but maybe a lot of kids that are behind. As a whole, our math from fall to winter, our growth and our performance was strong for math. So we still have the data coming in on the reading side of things, but that was complete enough today where I felt like I could show that, and a good indication some good things are happening on math with us. So I wanted to share that. Financial management, you know, everything is tracking as expected. It's just in the financial reports. I will be meeting with Dustin Reeves from Creative Planning on Monday or Tuesday next week to start to do our first draft of the fiscal year 26 budget, the budget for next year. And we really want to get the draft started, something on paper, before we go out and start recruiting for teachers at the recruiting fairs next month to make sure we really know what positions we can afford. So we will be bringing a preliminary budget to the board in February. Of course, a budget is just a plan and a starting point, but we want to make sure as we are determining the number of sections and making our plans for next year that we know how everything is going to fit together. And so that will be coming next month and should give us a good early start on that. As you can see under Human Resources Management, I am signed up for a number of different job fairs from South Dakota to Northern Illinois to Iowa to Wisconsin. Really gonna go try and get out ahead in front in February and March. And in terms of recruiting teachers, it's just such a competitive environment right now. And with the board hopefully approving our pay scale for next year as a piece of the puzzle to be able to put on the table at those fairs, and a lot of the exciting things going on here, we want to really try and go out and get in front of things. And you know, some of these might be like, well, why would you go to Northern Illinois for a teaching thing in Minnesota? Well, Northern Illinois is going to have a handful of teachers that go to school there from Minnesota that may want to move home. And if we are we're the only ones out there, we may get some of the teachers locked. You know, we may be picking from a small pool, but we need to cast a wide net to try and get out in front and get an early start. And
Are you concerned that they're not gonna have Minnesota teaching license though?
No,
The Minnesota
because
teaching license isn't, like, you need to specifically have a Minnesota teaching license, don't you?
well, yes, but everything was reciprocal for a period of time. So in other words, you're able to get your license, and you may have maybe a one-year license until you have a year to complete this requirement or that requirement. But really, the idea is more trying to go to a little bit untraditional places, and maybe a small number of candidates that are here, but there may not be any other Minnesota places they're recruiting for them also. And so you may have some opportunities to try and, so we'll see. I mean, worst that can happen is we strike out and we're no different off than, we haven't started till after this point in the past anyways. But it's just one of the things I really wanted to do to try and make sure that we're doing everything we can, because everything's about having great teachers. And great teachers make great schools, and we want to do everything we can to get out and give ourselves the best chance.
I don't know if you can come prepared with how they can take that pathway to get their Minnesota teacher's license though, because like, they're gonna have to understand that they are gonna have to have, and it is difficult. I mean,
It's good feedback.
Yeah, it is very good. Thank you.
Make sure you tell them that Portillo's is down the street for those Chicago kids.
Good point, yes.
My
So-
biggest question is, how are you going to get from Illinois to Spearfish to La Crosse in 3 days?
Oh, I love driving, reading books,
Okay.
and listening to podcasts.
All right.
So-
Not reading.
Yeah, we've had some best conversations on your way back
Yeah,
from Atlanta.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So-
the board
You will
meeting the
get some
next-
miles in.
And we have a board meeting,
The 27th.
is it 20? Well, actually, that's gonna be interesting, because that is the day of the,
Is that virtual one in the evening then, I
yeah,
imagine?
yeah, it's 4 to 7. So,
Might be worth a push.
yeah, or I'll have some of the principals take
Yeah,
over for me
I was gonna
when
say,
the board
put that on
meeting,
there.
I'll be the beginning part. So, good point. But yeah, so we'll see, and if it ends up not being a worthwhile use of my time or our resources, then we won't do it again the following year, but I just think we know how tough it's been out there, especially at secondary, and secondary is where we're gonna see the biggest growth and have the most openings right now. And so I'm just trying to be creative and proactive and see what we can do.
What are we seeing out of the freshman classes? Are we seeing the wind start to shift the other direction, or is it still kind of depressed as far as people picking education as a major?
It's low. And it's, I mean, the one job fair I went to, but made me partially decide to try be as aggressive as going to the one job fair in, I don't know if it was October or early November at River Falls, and talking with all these candidates, and they all had jobs already. I mean, half of them already had jobs in early November for second semester when they graduated. And they have learned and that they can be really picky and really take their time in choosing the right ones, and so we really need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be a place where people, you know, want to work, and we're trying to
You're
do
being
that.
smart, right? It's, and you just said it, but people is everything, right? I mean, if you get the right people, then everything goes easy, and if you don't have the right people, everything's very hard.
Yep. We'll talk a little bit about the driveline piece in a separate report, so I won't talk about that here under safety right now. I just do want to real briefly show, well, two things. One is that I've worked with Liz, who worked with us on marketing, and she's helped me put together a template for newsletter. I've made a commitment that beginning next week, we're going to try and be doing a letter to the community, some type of community-wide communication every 2 weeks. And we're kind of planning out what the topics are, and there's a lot of pieces in communication we've made a lot of progress on this fall. But the consistent communication from me to the whole community is kind of a piece that is been missing, and we need to close that gap. I need to close that gap, and so working on it, have a plan, and you should be looking for that and hold me accountable to that next month, seeing what that looks like and where that piece is at. I know Principal Exner does a great job with the weekly one, and part of it's been like trying to figure out what comes from me, what comes from the principals, how do we avoid overload of communication. We got the parent square going, and so I've been trying to be strategic and thoughtful, and trying to be strategic and thoughtful have kind of had a little bit paralysis by analysis on it, so I'm gonna jump in and see where it goes a little bit. But that said, we also have made good progress on our website, on track to launch next month, but we'll kind of show you what it, I think you probably, if you had a chance, maybe you checked out the link already. Obviously, those will be replaced by pictures of our own students in uniform. But it is done through Parent Square and linked through Parent Square. A lot of it has been migrated from a previous site, but will look a lot more professional, be a lot more user-friendly. Integration of calendars and Parent Square and those pieces will all be important pieces. We've just got to clean up the details now. There's some details like it's linked for example, if you go to About Us in the staff directory, it's linked through Parent Square, so it should, in theory, update with all the people that are on our staff, but it's pulling everybody who's been on our staff in the last 5 years. So we've got some of those little glitches to work out and get the photos uploaded, and but it should, in theory, once we add a new staff member leaves, it just automatically, when we do it in our synergy system, it automatically changes on there. So it's going to be a lot of good integration things. It's going to look nice and professional, as you can see.
Can parents go through there and find contact information then?
They will be able to, yes.
Email it to you?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, so it should be much improved. and all
Before,
kinds
were
of
you
ways.
guys just guessing? Like what their email would be?
Like, I haven't needed to, but like if you wanted to email a specialist teacher
Oh,
about something
I
and
see,
not
I
the
see.
core, like,
Oh,
we get great communication from core teachers. You know, if someone needed to reach
Good.
out to a different.
Yeah, so those are just a few of the highlights for the superintendent report, and a couple other things will be in some brief reports under presentations. Questions?
Right, Jolene is not here, so in her place, I will go ahead and just read the summary of key financial indicators like she usually does. So the average daily membership is this where she does this? Yes. Average daily membership, original budget $847, working budget $882, actual enrollment $876. The school's original budgeted surplus in general fund for the year is $233,463. The school is budgeting to spend $5,000 out of the community service fund. A projected cumulative fund balance of $2,625,750, or 25% of expenditures at fiscal year end. The school's working budget is projecting a surplus of $264,483 at fiscal year end, which results in an ending fund balance of $2,615,791, or 24% of total expenditures. Projected days of cash on hand is 65 days of annual expenditures. This is above 45 days and meets minimum bond covenants. Projected debt service coverage is estimated to be 1.24. Should the school bond in fiscal year 26, the required debit service coverage ratio will be required to be at least 1.20. If bonding is not completed, the debt service coverage ratio will need to be at least 1.1 to satisfy bond requirements. So it does satisfy both of those. As of month end, 50% of the year is complete. Cash balance as of the reporting period is $1,894,157 and is down from $1,980,080 in the previous month due to regular processing of transactions, as well as an increase in regular operating expenditures in this period. Revenues received at the end of the reporting period, 48.7% of the working budget. Expenditures dispersed at the end of reporting period, 46.1% of the working budget. The fiscal year 25 original budget was approved at the May 24 board meeting. The fiscal year 25 working budget is being reviewed by Creative Planning and Administration at WLA for appropriate revisions and adjustments based on enrollment and actual expenditures. The fiscal year 24 financial audit was submitted to MDE by 12/31/24. And then looking at the Finance Committee meeting, Ben, you're here. Was there anything major from the last, oh, you weren't at that one, just kidding. He's facility, but you were there. It says you were there, Mike.
I was not.
You were not. All right.
Jolene was gonna cover.
Jolene, yeah, she's not here.
I was
You were
out
also
sick.
gone.
Yeah.
The only thing on here from the meeting notes was that they reviewed financial statements for December of '24. Dustin was going to have some follow-up questions from Judith, and they would get back to the committee at the next meeting. It adjourned on at 4:45, and their next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, February 12th at 4:30 virtually. So I will make a motion to approve the December financials and committee minutes.
Well, so remove
All right, there's been a motion.
members
and a-
present. remove Jonas and Mike,
Yes.
but other than that,
Yes. It does say Joan. Oh, yeah, we're right.
he's in both. and
He's
Mike's
in
only
both.
in-
Yep.
No, when I took over facilities, I
Switched over.
dropped off in finance.
I will make sure that gets edited. Moving forward. Right.
I just want to
Yeah.
make an offer. Carly had requested, when we met today, but she requested a little bit of extra training on some of the finances pieces prior to next month's meeting when we have the preliminary budget. And so her and I are going to be meeting on February 13th. I think we said 1 p.m. if there's anybody else, as long as it's not a quorum, so let us know once we show up, because we can have a quorum, who would be interested in just getting a little bit more information on how the finances work, where the money comes from, the considerations. You're welcome to join us, or I'd be happy to do a separate session at a time that works for you. Be prepared. I get kind of passionate and into it and long-winded with it, but I'll try and keep it simple, and you can cut me off when I go too long. So just want to put that out there.
And they can just email you if they're interested in that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion around the December finance and committee minutes? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And Joe, who is not at the governance, is not here tonight to cover governance. Carly's gonna take over.
Alright. So we met on Thursday, January 9th at 5 p.m. Updated formatting in the 200 series and policy 303. We tabled wellness policy 533 to February. Nicole Stevens is going to follow up with PE staff about their thoughts on the PE uniform, so we will discuss that in February as well. And since policy 201 had gone to second reading at our last board meeting, the website was then updated with the revisions. Next month, we will review policy 514, 806, and consider the new policies that we need to have for student journalism and library materials. We'll also discuss wellness policy 533 and the PE uniforms policy 540. Next meeting is February 13th at 5 p.m.
Mhm.
Questions? Okay, then I will make a motion to approve the governance meeting minutes for January.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And we'll turn it over to Mike for facilities.
All right, facilities team met Tuesday, January 14th. The entirety of the meeting was devoted towards space and planning around space. There are several options that are actively being discussed. Both of them look promising. You know, we've got the right people involved. A realtor that helped us last time. There's going to be more to come rapidly on this, but there's a number of good reasons that we have to be a little circumspect at this point. Most of it around maintaining our negotiating position. So, more to come.
Well said. All right, any questions for Mike?
Yeah, all of them, but he said we can't talk about it.
Right. Yeah. What can I not answer?
Yeah, exactly. I saw people here yesterday, they were in our parking lot, they were talking in code. What were they doing?
I'll just say that architects looking at different possibilities,
Cool.
Yeah.
both internally in the space and without. I do think one thing that we can do, we'll need to double check with attorneys and make sure we're doing everything right, but we are allowed to have closed sessions for negotiating strategy. So we may consider doing a closed session in February to talk negotiation strategy around one of these options. Or these options, as long as we're sticking to just that narrow piece, and that more questions can maybe be answered then.
Yeah, if that's proper, I think that's the way to do it, is to sit down and really be able to unpack the thing.
Yeah, and so I'll talk with him, I'll double check with our attorney, make sure, VOA and everything, make sure we're doing everything according to open meeting law, and also maintaining our negotiating strategy confidentially around it, so.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, transportation boundaries.
Yeah, and so initially, this was maybe even gonna be an action item tonight. Unfortunately, I didn't get the information from Monarch until yesterday. And so it just hasn't had enough time to be fully vetted. But could you just pull up the document?
Yeah.
Just 6 colored crazy maps.
Yeah, I want to just explain to you and that's part of the problem. And then, of course, I was going to go through it more in detail with my readers, but I forgot my readers, so I can't even make sense of the map. So these little pieces is a part of the map. You couldn't really get one. But the color-coded things, these are current routes. So orange is one of our routes, red's one of our routes, green's one of our routes. There's 12 different routes between all of the maps. So that's, you're seeing what those pieces are. That's the only piece with those. But there's a few things that I'm not sure, I think are inaccurate, and that's why one of the reasons we need to hold off. But if you go right here, this right here is school right here, WLA2. So here is Hudson, here's 94. And one of the things that is a little bit silly is we're right here, but we don't bus to any of the Stillwater district. So this little area of like Elmo right now, we don't bus. And so we're trying to add that for next year within what we do in that little area. And we have about 5 or 6 applications right now from there, but it's hard to know how many people we don't have because they know we don't bus there. And if we built it up, and it's silly that we're busing 25 minutes away and not.
And if I'm thinking about what you're talking about, they built quite a few houses out there in the
Yes, and I went through and drove through. So that was, in my conversations with Monarch, just so you know, that's the only space. The intention is that our boundaries would be what they currently do, Monarch, it wouldn't be changing, but they're not clearly defined anywhere. And I wanted to make sure when we go through the enrollment process here in February, we're able to tell families, do we bus there or don't we? And we can have clear boundaries on all sides. So the only thing I'd ask is if you get, those of you that know the city and this part of town a little better than even I do, which isn't saying much because I'm a west side of town person most of my life, just take a look and see if it makes sense to you, and maybe I can pick a few of your brains between now and the next one, and let's see if we can find a little clearer way to put it up there. The idea was I asked them to have the street names. Right now, all we've had is pictures and saying, okay, we go to McKnight on the east, we go to 36th on the north, we go to Helmo, or this part over here on the east. And so it's not as clear as I was hoping to have it, having just gotten it yesterday, and so it's not ready for approval today, but at least want to put it in front of you, so hopefully we can get there where you can help me figure it out a little bit, and we can make sure we have it clear, and we can approve it at the next meeting.
Is it a mistake that this light pink is kind of trailed all over? Like it looks like it's a little bit in, if you go to the one with, that he was just referring to, right, not this one. You see how there's pink that's kind of,
Like up at the top on that inwood block?
like it's kind of intersects with some of these other colors. Why are we sending 2 buses over here? Why are we sending multiple buses over here?
Oh,
It looks like,
you're opening up a whole can of worms there, Allison. And but believe me, when we've tracked them down, there is reasons. I don't remember in the specific on that. I mean, that specific one. But I will say that I have also gotten our own routing.
I know you
software.
followed them, yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, I got our own routing software to put in to compare in the last couple of months, and putting in the new students we're coming to do, to kind of double check what they're doing. And part of it was to look at, you know, the possibility of us possibly doing some of our own buses next year, which I know you have reservations about. But we, you know, we did do some research around that. I did bring back to Monarch and say, you know, if we do this, are you interested in leasing to us instead? And so there's some negotiating going on there on some different pieces as well. But generally, I would have to backtrack an awful lot there, but I've looked into each of them, and it's pretty close to what it can be. The only thing that we did identify is there are some routes, just about 2 or 3 or so right now, where one suggestion parents had on the ball was that if you start the route on this side, on the way to school, you start it opposite way the way home. And on a lot of routes, it doesn't work because the first stops are so close to school, you know, and the other ones are far away, so it just doesn't work. But there's other ones where it wouldn't make much difference the way things are routed right now. We could do a few routes like that we identified looking at like that. But the routes are not why it's there. It's really about the boundaries right now. We'll come back to the routes.
Sure.
And if you can just help look and identify and be prepared that we want to establish that, so we can say to families, yep, you're within the board-approved transportation boundaries, you know you're not. It's just too much ambiguity right now. Kathy's talking to families, she's not really sure. Maybe talk to Connor, and try and figure it out. And so we're trying to have some tightness around that. And so that's where it's at. And this will come back as an action item next month, hopefully with a little bit easier to read maps. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if you can request specific things from them, but just having like a bigger map that just like literally shows at least the outer parameters, so that we kind of can see like, yes, there's all these routes in the middle, but what are the like outer parameters, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble grounding.
Yeah.
Right.
Me,
Where
like
I-
something like this.
Yeah, like that.
This is what I created for them. So I'm gonna go back and think of something.
Yeah.
But when I sent this and I said, is this what we're doing right now?
Yeah,
And then that's when she said, well, no, we're not doing this part of all this Lake Elmo right here.
gotcha.
And said, add this. But then some of what I sent them, like on that map, is like a diagonal line here. It's not
Right.
ex- So it's not exact. But yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I want. That's, again,
Perfect.
she sent me this yesterday. It was just too late to
Let's get it in there.
change it, but I also didn't want to totally wait till next month because I want to be able to act on it next month and not have the questions, so I want to at least get it in front of you.
Do we currently have any families in that Lake Elmo area? We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So it would benefit them as well.
You said we do St. Paul Park too, right? Or some of it?
Yes.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a small part of Woodbury that's technically still water district that we don't bus to as well. So they'd be included in that.
Do we have
Yep.
current families there?
Yeah.
So again, yeah, so I guess I did not bring that up when I met with them, that there's a little bit of, I didn't realize we had families there. Yeah, so the thought was, as we were looking at it with them, and we're gonna do a proposal to other bus companies as well, and they know that, but the thought was that we would increase from 12 buses this year to 16 next year, with the idea being that if we wanted the routes to be regional this year, we should have 2 more, 14, and 2 more for growth. And combine that with making it being a little bit stricter on the stop boundaries, and in particularly, really doing a communication thing, and then really sticking to, families have to have requested a bus by June 1st. We're not gonna add stops afterwards, and with us being full, the families can join a current route, and they will need to know that when they get their name off the waiting list, that, yeah, we have a spot, but we can't add new bus stops at this point.
Mhm.
This is the closest stop for you. And trying to be able to hold to that, and hopefully having, enough students on the waiting list that can do it, we can stick to that, and it's better I know it's inconvenient for the family that, I can't get the bus I want, but for the other 50 kids on the bus that are impacted by every change and add of a stop,
Right.
it's kind of the good of the
Yeah.
whole. And
Yeah.
we've said we would do that in the past from what I hear, and not stuck to it. And so we're gonna really work hard to communicate this spring, even starting next month, around these pieces, so families really know that you need to, when you get a bus, you need to let us know before the end of the school year.
Are there boundary bus stops? Like, I know we say, like, if you're outside of our boundary, here's the closest stop
Yeah.
to your boundary you can jump on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we will continue to do that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, we're gonna try and, no matter what we do, I'm afraid that beginning of the year busing is just, we can do what we can do, and we're gonna try and make it better next year, but, we're gonna take a lot of steps, but it's not gonna be perfect, but we're trying to be proactive.
Okay.
So the second part here, and I'll have Ben, you can, step on your podium, up to your podium if you'd like there.
Oh.
Yes.
But we mentioned last month that we met with the city of Woodbury about driveline safety concerns. We had a second meeting with them. They are really expecting us to make some changes to try and not have traffic back up beyond the entrance to the other building there. When Ben and I went and watched one day, we just went upstairs and watched, and we saw like 4 or 5 almost accidents that day. We saw exactly what the city of Woodbury was talking about when we were doing it. And Colleen, I watched in your room one day, their concerns are legitimate. And there's safety concerns that we have to address. And we've made incredible progress, and they're appreciative. But we need to have a plan to not only make sure we address this for this year, but to even be able to be successful with increased growth for next year, right? So a plan that solves the problem for the rest of this year would not even solve the problem for next year. And so we really need to be working towards it. It's possible we could be heading to a place where we almost have to do 2 separate dismissal times, with a gap between them and part of the alphabet, not for this year, but for next year. First half of the alphabet is from this time to this time, second half, and then rotate the second half of the year, something along those lines. But we're trying to see if there's some solutions short of that might be feasible for next year as well. You want to just share a little bit, Ben, about what steps we're taking?
Yeah.
I know you don't have the maps or everything.
I
But
won't
just
go up on my stage, but I'll stand up at least. So the primary issue, as Jonas has kind of talked about and the city talked to us about, is we double up our drive lines, line A and line B, right? And what happens is that near the end of our entrance over there, right by the spine clinic entrance, it goes down to 1 lane. And then people are leaving that 1 lane to try and get into our parking lot or to try and get into the spine parking lot. So they're coming out into the wrong lane of traffic, trying to get into our parking lot. Well, in the meantime, people are trying to exit our parking lot. And so that becomes the big issue, because people aren't waiting in the line until they get a spot to merge over. They're just saying, hey, I have a gap, I'm gonna try and get in there quick. And then if someone's trying to exit, that's a problem. So our goal is to move up the end of our line. So the end of our line is in front of that spine clinic entrance. So that way, if people need to come in for parent pickup, they have a safe way to come in and they don't have to go over into that other lane, okay? So what we're going to be trying to do is, right now, line A and line B has a coned off area where it's the front of the line. And given any given day, you can see people there for a 3:50 dismissal by 3 o'clock. I mean, people line up early and it lines up going back. So what we're going to try and do is utilize parts of our parking lot to have a staging area or a queue area. So we'll be going out and we'll be talking to those people who are first in line, and we'll be saying, you're still first in line, your students still will be entered. They'll actually be entered a couple minutes prior to when everybody else's names pop up. But we're gonna have you pull forward and be in our parking lot, in our staging area. And then we've made sure that there's not traffic to cross, but we will have an adult there. So the students come out, we'll walk them to the staging area. And the hope is that if we do 1, 2, or even 3 staging areas, that we get about 30 cars. And that 30 cars then moves up our line ever so much forward, so we don't have that merging issue.
So is that in the lanes where staff park?
Yeah.
Okay. So no one's
The
leaving.
first one would be right where staff park, second one would be the next one over, and if we need a third one, it would be the furthest one down the line, kind of where parent walk-up is now. So,
I just emailed you the message that went out to families today, the guideline update on Parent Square if you haven't gotten it, board members, so it has a map on there if you want to see.
so that's kind of our plan. The city of Woodbury will be stopping out. They've been stopping out periodically as we kind of go. They're really with us on this. They believe that we have made some really good progress on where we have been and where we are at now. And they realize that it's not a quick, easy solve. So they're gonna be checking on our proposed idea, If this proposed idea doesn't get us substantial help in this progress, then we'll explore some other ideas that have kind of been brought forward. But this is utilizing the space that we have. And really, Jonas, when we were watching, how long of a problem is it? It's really a 7, 8, maybe 10-minute problem.
It really depends on the day.
Yeah.
On a day where everything is normal and usual and things are going smooth, it usually is a 3 or 4 minute problem, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4 minute problem. On a snow day where a lot more families drive, or super cold day where a lot more families drive, our 2, 3, 4 minute problem becomes a 10, 15 minute problem.
Yeah.
And the 2, 3, 4, we saw a lot of close accidents with the 2, 3, 4 minute problem. So, you know, so it's some work to be done for sure if we're gonna make it work in a way that's gonna be sustainable. And, yeah, so.
How many doors do kids come out for driveline?
There's a parent pickup door for parent walk-up. So people that get here earlier or choose to do a parent walk-up have a space where they can go do that. And then there's the kind of the main door that students come out for their driveline door.
So the staging area, I'm so turned around in this building, but
Yep.
the staging area would be where?
It'd be further down, so those students would probably go out the parent walk-up door, 2B,
Okay.
down at that end.
And that would help too, like with driveline, it has the different color coded things, that's like, if those kids all go out that way,
Yep.
that'll even speed up
And each
things.
one of those staging areas will have a different color in driveline.
Yeah.
So theoretically, a student can walk out and say, I'm purple today, and that adult is gonna know exactly
Yeah.
where to take that student.
Yeah.
And really, you know, there is a pattern to the parents that are here consistently early, and we'll learn that pattern even better as they go into staging areas, because then we'll know that those students, you know, we can get them out a little bit sooner. Or, you know, Tommy, you're always one of the first ones called, let's get you down, you know,
Yeah.
to where you need to go.
And
Yeah.
isn't it true that the first ones that are called are always the slowest ones to get rid of?
That's a challenge. That is a challenge, you know, to try and get them down, so.
We are trying, I promise, we are trying. We're trying to get them down.
Yeah, that'll move things along quickly.
I think it will once we figure it out. I think the hard part is anytime you do something new, it takes you a little bit to figure it out.
Yeah,
Sometimes it gets worse for a day or two before it gets better.
yeah,
And that can be frustrating when you got a routine for the school year. Everything's kind of, for the most part, I think our families are into routine. They accept how things are, and it is what it is. And now you make things worse. Why are you messing with things?
yeah.
Well,
I did have to, when I, as a teacher, reading the email, I was like trying to wrap my head around it. And initially, it's hard to see something that's different. I teach right up to 9:45. I'm teaching my kids at 9:45. The kids are looking at the clock.
3:45.
Sorry, 3:45. Till 3:45, and the kids are looking at the clock like, Miss Pint, aren't you going to dismiss us? So like to change the way that I do things. I mean, I don't have enough time to get all the curriculum out anyways. I'm like, oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to dismiss kids at 3:45, like out the door. So like, it bums me that I lose a little bit of instruction time, but.
totally understandable. And I think the just important thing to remember with colleagues, and as you talk about it, is we're not arbitrarily choosing to do this. The city is saying we've got to do something, right? They basically said you need to do something, or we're going to tell you, you know, a little more restrictive. Like, you know, they want us to figure out the least restrictive way for us that we can that will work, but they basically are telling us that this is not a safe situation and we can't let it continue. And so.
And hopefully it will be 30 or so students or 30 or so families that are at that 3:45 dismissal. So hopefully it will have a small ripple in each classroom, like hopefully it's not all of your students, right?
Yeah, no, right.
You know, that need to go down early. And we're gonna just keep working on it. The other challenge that comes with this, that we're working through, is just making sure, I mean, those of you that have gone through our driveline, our staff is pretty phenomenal out there, and there's a high number of staff. We really prioritize safety and trying to make that system work as best we can. And this will mean an increased number of potential staff that are needed to do those types of things. So it's really incredible to watch like from that bird's eye view, when me and Jonas are up there just watching, even though we saw some near accidents, watching the whole thing run is pretty phenomenal.
It is. And other thing I would say too, just for context, we're hoping that we get another 30 to 40 cars and kids out early. Well, there's about 40 classrooms. So really, for context, it's about an average of 1 student per classroom. Granted, there may be some room that has 3 or 4 and others have none, but you may not necessarily have to change your whole routine. You may just need to get 1 student out earlier, is the hope. And I know that's gonna be tricky, but just in terms of perspective, or context, how much we're talking about though, is the hope that that would be enough to make a difference.
Elementary principal update.
I'm sure you're ready, you got transportation taken care of.
I did tell him he was limited to 33 minutes, so.
I just wanted to was taking a little bit of notes over here. By the way, I am Patrick Exner, I'm the K-5 principal, for those that don't know me. Ashley, you reminded me in your discussion about one of my highlights of the year when Ashley told me that her daughter had graduated from Woodbury Leadership Academy, was heading over to sign up for South Washington Schools, the high school, and met with the counselor and said, "Oh, Woodbury Leadership Academy? What honors classes are you taking?" And her mortified daughter said, "None," you know. But just that tradition of excellence, right? That expectation is there, and those are some things. I also wanted to notice, board members, all K-5 teachers, right here. All right. Another note to that. Jonas asked me today to do type of kind of an audit or a culture of what's going on. And I guess the other one-off note is, you know, we talk about driveline and we talk about student safety and all of those things. And there's nothing more special about WLA to me than driveline, having a caring adult literally open your door and put them in to the parent. That's something really special about WLA, and I think it embodies what you see when you walk the halls as well. So we'll figure out driveline, but it's something that, like my goal is always, let's have driveline like Chick-fil-A, right? The most efficient drive-through that there is. Okay, so K through 5, let's talk about a few things. I've been walking halls for 31 years in this profession, and I've done 45 teacher observations in this time that I've been just here. And so I'm going to share with you some noticing. There's a reason Jonas is going over and looking for teachers. And I can only speak for K-5 space. That is really the secret sauce. And let me share you about qualified teachers, some of the things that go on for these qualified teachers. One is they work together with just growth mindsets. They meet the common prep. You don't see that in a lot of schools, at school this size. You've got 5, I call it 6 teachers in every grade, because the SPED teacher doesn't miss a beat. The special education teacher is part of those teams. And so they're getting together in their hour every day. And it's not, you know, smoking cigarettes and the old school teacher staff lounge room. These people are really committed to talking about their students and their needs. I've never not walked into one of those meetings and not seen that. Some of the training that they get during the year, I just want to talk about that, and a lot of it is in-house. I've noticed Jonas started talking about the growth, the data-informed instruction. Teachers sit together and go over the data of these individual students. They look for ways that can inform their instruction. Responsive classroom training, the number of students that went to that. Again, not to go into the weeds, responsive classroom training is behavior management training with a positive spin. Seeing the child, the whole child. The work that they've done in a group thing called Bully Proof Classroom. fifth grade, I know the fifth grade team uses it a lot. Colleen's probably gone through that, well, how many years now? And kind of going, I know Kelly Payne and Jolene's not here, she was also there.
It was,
putting that
it was
together.
Kelly and Jolene that did that, and Kelly's been presenting on bullying every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And then, this year also was, you might have noticed, maybe not a new spin, we did a conference, parent-teacher conference guide. Spun it a little bit more towards the listening to the parents so that we can partner better with parents about their child's needs. I can't speak enough about the strong curriculum where Allison said she teaches all the way to 350. I get in there and I feel like I'm disrupting or getting in the way sometimes when I go in the classroom because they're on the learning. And the students, they're expected, you know, I walk into a first grade class, they're talking about Mesopotamia in first grade. And the students just get stronger as the year. And you know how I tell that? Every year, the behavior referrals get smaller the older they get. By fifth grade, I rarely see fifth grade. That's not only kudos to fifth grade, that's kudos to all the teachers that came before them, that set up that expectation.
Well, we can give fifth grade a little bit, can't we?
What's that?
We can give fifth grade a little bit of credit, can't we?
No, I'm not giving Colleen credit because she's here. The other thing that's the audit that I found that I see is just the trusted teacher and student relationships. And how I know that, and how I see that, from an administrative corporate type of model it is. I don't get phone calls saying, I hate my teacher, find me another class. I haven't had any of those calls as the principal. I watch teachers meeting with kids, tears, laughs, everything. They're outside their rooms in passing time. They're listening to the children. They're caring for the children. And kudos to a great parent group. The number at this time of the year for a K-5 principal, I'm calling certain parents, random parents in to meet with them. You know, with the simple questions, what's going well, what's not going so well, what can we do more of? Just the receptiveness of parents. The gratitude of parents for me reaching out even when their child's been naughty. Thanks for letting me know. I've noticed students who make mistakes, the behaviors are bad, they're held accountable. And they have the key ingredient is they always have a soft place to land here. They know and move forward. Couple things coming up. Couple things that I noticed this recently. Ashley, thanks for the international night. That was fantastic. I know we didn't have as many people as we maybe wanted. Still had a pretty good turnout. The amount of tables I was really impressed with this year. So it's an annual tradition, I understand. Let's just keep that rolling. Tomorrow's gonna mark the first rendition of Donuts with Dads. This is something started by Greg, who can't even take Greg, and Jolene, who had the idea, came to me with it. Greg got a group of people who are engaged to go with them, and I think we're gonna have 8 dads together with Donuts with Dads at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Finally, I'll just share, we've also got a date for kindergarten roundup that will get spread out. It just is recent, March 20th. So spread the word. And finally, I'll end with the best thing I heard this week. I heard a student say to a parent, "Thanks for helping me and not making me feel bad." WLA.
That's nice.
Thanks for helping me and not making me feel bad. Thank you. Questions?
Can I just say thank you? for being here at WLA. Not just like tonight, but like in generalness. You brought so much zest and life to our community, and I'm just really grateful. And I'm not only speaking for myself, but my whole team. So,
I'm grateful.
thank you.
Grateful for all of you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Patrick.
It's excellent.
All right. Consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. Consent agenda items are as follows. Approval of the December 19th, 2024 meeting minutes, approval of the December 19th, 2024 working session meeting minutes, and approval of the January personnel update. Cassidy, will you lead us in a roll call vote?
Mike Bullitt,
Aye, yes.
William Beck,
Aye.
Colleen Longbaugh,
Yes.
Allison Pitt, yes. Shelby Poole,
Yes.
Carly Sherrill,
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. Moving on to approving the VOA amended charter contract, which I'm sure all of you read all 99 pages, word for word. I tried a few times. Got some highlights?
Yeah, I talked to Stephanie Olson before the meeting and like, went back and looked at the old email, and it really, what is on each of your thoughts next to your agenda, it's just what the changes are in there. There's really nothing that is, it's mostly language and statutory, and a few things where VOA is being proactive with some of the additional oversight of charter schools. Reality is, we don't get to negotiate this. We either say yes, or they say, okay, you don't have your charter anymore, and we don't do this. Not a lot of options for us here in this field, but we still have to approve it. And so it's kind of got the bullet points. Should I just read them real quick, or, because we don't have it in the packet, no, we should just say what's in it. So a few of the statutory references, the primary purpose changed to improve the learning, achievement, and success of all students is a wording change. There's an additional purpose of the contract, which is to increase quality learning opportunities for all students. The World Best Workforce requirement was changed to the comprehensive achievement and civic readiness measure, which, again, those are just changes in the statutes that we had our contract had to match. So there's also a few little things. There's a VOA expectation, although it was never in the contract, of having the board agendas out and to VOA 3 days ahead of time is now actually in the contract, which it probably should have been in the first place. Updated some statutory language around training, reworded academic performance standard 2, just the wording, but it's the same measure. It's just a change in wording. Under academic standard 4, the school has adopted a formal teacher evaluation process and adheres to requirements set forth. Was moved to a different standard within where they evaluate it. It was already in there, it's just moved to where it's evaluated by them within their pieces. And so it's nothing that is really changing anything for us, but they just had to clean up some language and make sure that if the state looked into things a little more with Start Tribune looking in, that it was clean. So.
Right.
So we need a motion to approve 9.1?
Yes, 9.1, and it's additional.
And can we do it as a blanket?
Yeah, I think
Because
so,
we already
9.1,
signed it,
yeah.
okay. I'd like to move that we approve the contract in 9.1 as well as the amended signature page and the addendum in 9.1.1 and 9.1.2.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve 9.1, 9.11, and 9.12. Is there any further discussion around any of that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then the teacher pay scale.
This is the same information that we went through in November and said we would bring back in January once we were, once it was right before time to do the budget. And so this would be what our budget is based on. We went through all the rationale for this in November, and we said that the first year, and that's all that's included in this document, would be what we'd approve right now, that we have a plan for years 2 and 3, but they're not a promise, and those will be approved separately, as we move forward. But it does make a significant adjustment for teachers. Most of our teachers will get a $5,000 raise next year. And there'll be some additional little pieces for some high need areas, special education, math and science. And then if $5,000 doesn't get a teacher to a starting salary of 50, we have our minimum starting salary next year at 50, as we talked about. And then that would be the following year a little bit less than teachers that didn't get that amount this year, so that everybody's kind of getting the same, as we've talked about.
No one goes down. Nobody goes backwards with this?
No,
Okay.
no, I think just what everybody gets is $5,000.
Okay.
It's a significant piece, and just to be clear, the way we're paying for this is through our growth, right? Like the fact that and part of the reason we needed to wait till now is make sure we had enough new applicants coming in to make sure we were gonna have enough students to, support as we assumed we would. So a good chunk of the added money for our additional students is going towards teacher raises. Obviously, there's increased expenses as well, but we're not increasing administrative expenses in any ways. There's a number of things that are holding tight where the growth right now is more efficient and we're able to do it that way. And so that is the way we're doing it, and this is all getting vetted budget-wise already with Dustin and everything, so our budget will work as we build it next week with these salaries.
Okay.
My only other question, does this remove negotiation power for you? So like you said, like math, science, social ed, some of those are different conditions. Do we need to create a different conditional scale for that? Does this tie you to saying if, Johnny comes in and applies for a job and he's at year 7 with a master's, I have to pay him this amount?
It does not, no.
Okay.
This is a guideline.
Okay.
And in fact, we would not necessarily, what we would do is, since not every teacher is to that point in the scale, we would not pay them more than our returning teacher in the same place, and they would get a trajectory to get there.
Okay.
So it is a guide, it is a guide,
Okay.
but that we would not go above that beyond the few exceptions that we mentioned.
Okay.
Jonas, I
Mhm.
just think for clarity for you too, you talked about growth. You talked about growth in order to make that salary. I know what you mean by that, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that that doesn't mean Colleen's now going to have 35 students in her classroom.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I wanna make sure that-
Our classroom sizes will remain as they have been this year. In fact, we specifically said we would not increase class sizes even at all this year to do that, which is at kindergarten, target class size of 20, at K3, 22, and 4th grade and above, 24.
Okay.
Good catch.
So we talked how it's gonna take 3 years for us to get to these numbers? Or is this what we're banking on?
So that is if the $5,000 raise got you to that amount, if less than a $5,000 raise got you to that amount, that would be your amount. But for most of you, it
5,000.
won't. Yeah, 5,000 still won't get you to that amount for most of you.
Right, so,
So it's a $5,000 cap. year 2 and 3 are included in the September one. I didn't want to confuse us with what we were actually approving today, which was just next year's numbers. Right? Yeah.
So those numbers are caps, except in those hard-to-fill positions.
Yes, and there's still caps there, but there's an extra certain amount that's a little bit more than it's been for those positions next year, for the special ed math and science.
So that's not saying that's what everyone's.
It's not saying that you would be that, you get up to a $5,000 raise.
So it's still pretty much what we would.
It's what's on there, yeah, it's right, that is the maximum that somebody would make once we.
So what's the minimum? It's just $5,000.
Yeah, for everybody, I believe next year, $5,000 doesn't get them to that, so everybody's gonna basically get $5,000. In year 2,
So
some people would be getting to where they'd be on the scale.
So the scale's not gonna be full effect for 3 years, hopefully.
But yeah, but then in year 3, pretty much everybody will be on the scale. They're real close to where that scale says. With the,
But previously, I believe you said the scale will also grow 3%,
right.
hopefully. That's our aim.
That's the plan.
That's our aim.
So if you look at the November board packet, it's got years 2 and 3 on here. Right, but I didn't put it here because we weren't approving that tonight. I didn't want anybody to think that we were approving that tonight, but that's what it's going to. And the document you're looking at shows where.
This.
Yeah.
I have team members that are concerned, like they've been teaching for 7 years. We hire someone that's going to be their 4th year coming in, and they're getting $2,000 more than the 7.
They wouldn't.
Yeah.
They won't.
That's a
Even though
concern.
that scale says that,
Yeah.
we will be going to, looking at what's our highest person and making sure that nobody coming in who can make more than them with the same amount of experience. Tracking? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, in other words, teacher comes in, 8 years teaching experience with a bachelor's degree. We go and say, okay, here's what we say on the scale, but what are our teachers that are 8th year with a bachelor's degree making right now? We can't hire somebody new, even there for more than the person is making now. They would go in on the scale where the person is now.
Where the
our highest
current
person.
staff are.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And masters?
And the master's is that second column. So it's an additional $4,000 for the bachelor's.
Okay. But it's not gonna be, but the top, anybody with a master's can get is 5,000.
More than it would be with the bachelor. That's what it is right now, yeah, but on that scale. Yes. I mean, I know we're not still gonna be competitive for a teacher with a master's degree and 20 years teaching experience compared to South Washington County. We kind of eliminated that piece, but it's a huge
Sure.
step in the direction we.
But we have a handful of masters that are 8 and 10, and we'll have a new one coming in
Mhm.
with one of our current teachers that are getting our masters, so. They're not 20 years yet. So I just want to be clear.
That.
So we can't pay a teacher that has been teaching for 20 years and has a master's, but we have teachers that have masters and they've been teaching for 6 years. So are we gonna be able to pay them?
Well, we should be moving towards being pretty competitive at that place. I mean, it might not be the same, but it's still pretty competitive. But if we're really trying to match, I mean, if you're really trying to match the local districts, this whole plan that we went through and met about, matching is probably bachelor's up to 8, 9 years, and then there starts to be a gap.
Yeah.
That widens each year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is still limitations, and again, back to the reason for the limitations that we have, class sizes is the biggest one. We talked about some of the other ones, but, you know, if you had 30 students in a class, you had 6 more kids, that's another $50,000, and, you know, it's a whole different deal, and that is where the biggest differences come in, is in the class sizes. And it's really the biggest reason we can't, I mean, there's some other pieces we've talked about, like, it's less efficient to transport to such a wide area, and there's some other pieces as well. But the biggest thing that keeps us from being at the same level is really class sizes. So, and, you know, we started with the assumption with that group that touching class sizes wasn't an option at this point, and we wanted to maintain the sizes we had, and that's what families value and teachers do too, so. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know better.
No,
answer than
I
that.
know, I guess I just want to know if you're going to be going to some new hires with this scale, then this should,
Fair. The main thing with the new hires is this $50,000 starting. That's really where it's gonna have the impact. That's really most
Because
of.
they'll all be new grad at that
but then
point
we have
next year.
7-year teachers that will be getting $54,000. That is just $4,000 more than these new hires.
Yes.
That's where,
But then their raises will be more in years 2 and 3 also, right? So that was part of what we talked about. A few of those things would even out in years 2 and 3 because we're trying to get that
right.
psychological
So
picture.
this just represents the goals for the next 2 to 3 years?
I think that's-
Okay. Just, I want to be clear.
Mhm.
If I'm voting for something, I need to be crystal
Yeah,
clear.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then the pay doesn't increase for 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 for those years?
So the reason that is, and it still will increase the 3%
Oh, okay.
each year, you know, but that's based on the scales of local school districts. Usually, it's kind of the same from 16 to 21. That's how most of these are set up, where you grow through year 12, and then you have what they call career increment, year 16, and then year 21, and
Okay.
at year 25. So it doesn't mean you would get the, you know, the scale for year 2 is 3% more in each of those cells, and then the year after that is 3% more. Assuming we're able to do what we think we're gonna do.
Any further questions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the teacher pay scale.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. For our board communication, future agenda items, reflection, I think, right now there's just so much like negative press around charter schools and the Star Tribune and all of the things that are being brought forth, and it's good to not see our name in any of those reports. And I would just encourage everyone to continue to advocate for all charter schools, not just WLA, but recognizing that having a choice in where you send your children matters. And when there's the negative conversations on social media and the negative conversations in the news, that we are just thankful for the great things that are happening at our school and continue to speak positively about the charter world. It's a good place to be. So then that's in part due to all of our wonderful staff and families, and so just wanted to put that out there because there's just been a lot of negativity around charters lately. So yeah, our next next meeting will be held. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the November agenda now. The next meeting will be held Thursday, February 27th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. right back here in person. And I will be there. I was thinking the board meeting was the 20th for some reason, so I will be here. Conferences are the week before, so.
Cool.
All right, our favorite motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
All right.